The widow had been in the territory 9 weeks and had asked for work at every door on the street, and on the last Thursday in November, she asked at the freight office, which was the last door there was. She was a tall woman in her middle 30s, thin in the face in the way of somebody eating once a day on purpose, in a black wool dress gone rusty at the seams and a shawl that had been good once. She had come west in the spring with a husband and a wagon and a claim number, and the Platte had taken the husband and most of the wagon at a crossing in June, and the claim number had turned out to belong to a man in Omaha who had sold it twice. She had no kin in the territory. She had no money for the fare back. She had a trunk at the boarding house that the boarding house was holding against what she owed, and 11 days of credit left at the mercantile because the mercantile's wife was kind and the mercantile's husband had not yet noticed. The freight agent did not look up from his book. "No," he said. "You have not heard what I can do. I have heard it 4 times this month from 4 women. I have got no work, and if I had work I would not give it to a woman who cannot lift a crate. I can lift a crate." "Then I have got no work," he said, which was what I said the first time. She stood there. She had learned in 9 weeks that standing there sometimes changed the answer, and that leaving never did. "Ma'am," the agent said, and he did look up then, and he was not being cruel, which somehow made it worse. "I will tell you what everybody has been too polite to tell you. This town has decided about you. You are the woman the river widowed and the land office cheated, and folks are sorry about it for about a week, and after that you are a bill somebody is going to have to pay. Nobody will hire you because hiring you means you are theirs. Do you understand what I am saying to you? I understand it. Go to the church. They will get up a collection and put you on the coach. I do not want a collection. Then, I do not know what to tell you." There was a man at the counter behind her who had come in to sign for a shipment of wire, and who had been standing with his hat in his hand for the length of it. He was a widower of about 40, broad through the shoulders and gone gray at the temples early, in a canvas coat with a sheepskin collar and a week of beard, and he ran 2 sections and a winter herd 11 miles out along the North Creek with nobody but a hired boy. He had buried his wife 4 winters back and had not spoken to an unmarried woman since, and he had come to town that Thursday for wire and nothing else. What he did next he had not planned in any way, and he said so for 30 years afterward to anybody who suggested otherwise, and the people who knew him best believed him, because planning had never once been among his faults. She turned to go and he was in her way, and she said, "Excuse me," and he did not move. "You are looking for work," he said. "I am looking for work. Nobody will hire me," she said. "I have asked at every door on this street, and I am telling you before you waste your breath, because I am tired of the shape of the conversation. I am not hiring," the man said. "I am asking." That is the whole of it, and it was said across a freight counter in front of an agent and 2 teamsters. And by supper it was in every kitchen in the county. He meant a marriage. He said so plainly right there at the counter, because sideways was beyond him, and because he had worked out on the ride and that saying it quiet would look like shame. "I have a house with a stove in it and a room that is not used," he said. "I have got a boy of 9 who has not had a woman in the house since his mother died 4 winters ago. I am not going to stand here and tell you I am in love with you, because you would know it for a lie and you would be right. I am telling you, there is a roof, and it is warm, and it is yours, and you may have it as a wife or as a housekeeper with wages. And whichever one you say is the one I will hold to, and I will not ask you again which. You do not know me. I know you have asked the whole street," he said, "and that you are still standing up." The freight agent said afterward that he had never in his life wanted so badly to not be in a room. She did not answer that day. She asked for a night to think, and he said take 3, and she took 2, and on the Saturday she came out on the mail wagon with her trunk, which he had paid the boarding house for without telling her, and which she found out about in January and was angry about for a week. They were married in the parlor of the parsonage on the 8th of December, with the hired boy and the parson's wife standing up for them, and she wore the rusty black because it was what she had, and he did not say anything about that except to tell the parson to get on with it when the parson looked at the dress a half-second too long. The town did not like it. That is the part people forget when they tell it now, because it has a good ending, and good endings sand the corners off. The town did not like it at all. A man of property marrying a stranded woman inside a fortnight was, in the arithmetic of that country, either charity making a fool of a man or a woman making a fool of him on purpose, and there was no third column. Within a month it had settled into the second. She heard it at the mercantile through a doorway. "He will find out," a woman said. They always find out. She was 9 weeks with nothing, and then she was in a house with a deed on it. He is a grown man. He is a lonely one, which is not the same thing. She stood in the dry goods aisle with her hand on a bolt of gray flannel until they went out, and then she bought the flannel and walked the 11 miles home because the wagon was not going her way, and she did not tell him for 2 years. What she did instead was work. She was up before the boy, and the stove was going before either of them was down, and by the middle of January, the house that had been a place a man slept in was a place 2 people lived in. She turned the mattresses and boiled the bedding and found where the cold was coming in over the north sill and stopped it with felt and a batten. She learned the herd. She learned it fast, because she had grown up on a farm in Ohio and knew more about cattle than anybody in that county had thought to ask her. And she was careful with the boy, which was the hardest of the 3, because a boy of 9 who has lost a mother does not want a new one and will punish you for trying. She did not try. She fed him and let him alone, and answered what he asked and did not ask anything back, and somewhere in February he began following her out to the barn in the mornings without either of them saying anything about it. The husband was careful too. He slept in the front room from December to April. She had said wife, and he had held to it, but he had also worked out, in whatever way a man works such things out on a horse in the dark, that a woman who agrees to a marriage in a freight office because the alternative is a collection at the church has not exactly agreed, and that the only thing he could give her that she had not been given by anybody in 9 weeks was time. He never said any of that. He just slept in the front room. The winter turned hard the last week of February. There is a kind of winter in that country that everybody prepares for, which is snow. And there is another kind that nobody can prepare for, and the second kind is what came that year. Snow you can push. Snow a cow will move through and paw down into and find the grass she can smell underneath. What ruins an outfit is not the depth, it is the lid. It came in as a warm rain on the 26th, which is the worst thing that can happen in that country, and it froze on the ground, and then it snowed for 2 days on top of the ice. And by the 1st of March the range was sealed under a crust a horse could not break, and the cattle could not paw through. Every outfit on the North Fork was in the same trouble at once. Cattle standing on grass they could not reach. It was the widow who saved that herd, and she did it with a thing she had brought out of Ohio in her head. She had them cut and haul, and when the hay ran short in the 2nd week, she had them go into the willow bottoms along the creek and cut browse, willow and cottonwood tops, the young wood, and haul it out on a sledge to the cattle, which is not feed exactly and will not fatten anything, but it is bulk, and it is something a cow can work on, and it will hold a herd alive on the far side of a fortnight when nothing else will. Nobody up that creek was doing it. It was not the practice of that country, where browse was what you cut when you had already lost. Her father had done it in a bad Ohio winter when she was 11, and she had held the horse. She did not announce it. She told the hired boy to bring the sledge and the axes, and she went down into the willows herself in a borrowed coat. And when the husband rode in at noon and found his wife and his hired hand 2 miles down the creek bottom cutting young cottonwood, he sat his horse for a while and watched. "That is not feed," he said. "It is not. Cattle will not do anything on Willow." "They will not do anything on it," she agreed. "They will live on it. There is a difference, and the difference is about 3 weeks. And 3 weeks is all we need, because the crust will go off before the middle of the month." He got down and took the second axe. That was the whole conversation. He never asked her where she had learned it, then or later, which she noticed and thought about, because every other man in that county would have asked and would have meant something by asking. They lost 9 head out of 240. The outfit east of them lost 60. The one north of them lost better than 100, and the man who owned it was in the bank at Ogallala by June. And in the middle of March, with the crust still on and the sledge going out twice a day, the talk in town turned, and it did not turn kind. It turned the other way, because a town that has decided a woman is a fortune hunter does not give the decision up easily, and a woman who suddenly knows how to save a herd is a woman who has been managing something. The town meeting was on the 21st of March in the schoolhouse, called for the winter relief subscription and the road tax. And it went 2 hours, and then a man stood up who had lost 40 head and had drunk his supper, and he said the thing out loud that the county had been saying with the door shut. He said the outfit up the creek had come through the crust because a woman who came out of nowhere had got her hands on it, and he wanted to know what a man knew about a woman he married in a fortnight. And he said the word he had been going to say all night, which was that she had bought a deed with a black dress. The room went entirely quiet. The husband stood up. He was not a talker, and everybody there knew it, and he stood a moment too long, which people afterwards said was the thing that made it land. "You are asking what I know about her," he said. "I am. I know she came into that office on the corner 9 weeks off the Platte, with no money and no kin and no fair home, and told a man to his face that nobody would hire her, and did not cry when he agreed with her. He turned his hat over in his hands once. I know she has fed my boy since December, and has not one time asked him to call her anything he did not want to call her. I know she walked 11 miles from this town in January carrying flannel because the wagon was not going her way, and did not mention it to me, and I found out from the parson's wife. And I know that when the crust came, every man in this room, including me, stood in his own yard and watched his cattle stand on grass they could not get to. And she went to the willow bottoms." He looked around the schoolhouse. "You want to know what I know about her? I know she is the reason there is a herd standing at my place at all, and I want to say the rest of it plain, because it has been said crooked in this county since December, and I am done with it. I did not marry that woman out of charity. I asked her in a freight office in front of 3 men because I did not want it done in a corner where it could be talked about, and it got talked about anyway. She is not a housekeeper, and she is not a bill, and she is not somebody's collection. She is my wife. She is on the deed as of Tuesday. She will be on it when I am dead. And any man who has something further to say about the arrangement can say it to me outside, tonight, and I will hear him out, and then I will go home." Nobody went outside. The man who had stood up sat down and did not look at anybody, and 3 weeks later he came out to the North Fork with his hat off and asked her how a person cut brows, and she told him, and she gave him the loan of the sledge. She was on the deed. He had gone in on the Tuesday before the meeting and had it done, which meant he had done it before he knew he would need to say it, and that is the part she thought about afterward more than the speech. She asked him about it once, that summer, out at the fence line. "You put me on it before the meeting." "I did." "Why?" He worked a staple in and did not look at her. Because in December I said you could have it as a wife or as a housekeeper, and whichever you said was the one I would hold to. You said wife. That was 7 months of me holding to a thing on my side only. And a deed is the only part of it a court would care about. And I wanted the part a court cares about settled before somebody in this county made me say it out loud. You did have to say it out loud. I did, he agreed, but I did not have to decide it out loud. There is a difference. The boy called her by her name until the autumn he turned 11. And then one morning he called her something else at the breakfast table, and nobody at that table made anything of it, because she had understood by then that the way to keep it was to let it happen and not remark on it. They were married 31 years. He died first, in 1912, and she ran the North Fork alone for 9 years after that, and then handed it to the boy, who was by then a man of 42 with a wife and a place of his own, and who took it anyway. She never once in 50 years told the story with herself at the middle of it. When people asked, and people did ask, because it was the kind of thing a county keeps, she always told the same short version, and it was always about the sentence. She said she had gone into that freight office, having already decided to take the church collection and the coach seat, because 9 weeks is a long time and a person runs out. The true thing had come out of her out loud for the first time that afternoon, that nobody would hire her, mostly to have it over with. And a man she had never spoken to said he was not hiring. He was asking. A great many kind things had been said to her in her life, she would tell them, before that afternoon and after it, and most kindness comes with a shape to it, a small hook, a way of putting the person receiving it slightly below the person giving it. She said that sentence had no hook in it anywhere. He had not offered her rescue. He had asked her for something. That, she said, was the whole difference, and it had taken her about 2 seconds to hear it, and 31 years to finish being grateful for it. If you have ever been on the receiving end of help that had a hook in it, and know exactly how different the other kind feels, stay with me a while, because that is the only thing this channel is really about. So here is what I will leave you with. If it had been you standing in that freight office on the last Thursday in November, with the trunk held against your board bill and the coach fare being got up at the church, and a man you had never spoken to said he was not hiring, he was asking, would you have trusted it? Or would you have taken the coach? Rest easy. It is cold out on the North Fork tonight, and the stove is going.